So we have a problem here in the United States. The chief economist, the top economic advisor to President Biden, the president himself, has no clue what he's talking about. Today I want to play a clip for you. And in this clip, Jared Bernstein, who's the chief economist, he has no clue what he's even talking about. Because he's asked, why does the United States have to borrow money, borrow its own currency, when we could just print more money? Now, in just a moment, I'm going to explain what he should have said, and then I'm going to play you a clip as to what he actually said. But today we need to talk about why this is a massive problem, because we have people like this throughout our entire government. So I'll explain more on that in just a moment. All I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. So let's talk about this massive problem. Do we really have incompetent people in our government that have been brought in by maybe the president himself or that we have elected? Well, the answer is yes. Just think about Kamala Harris for a second. Kamala Harris was supposed to be that border czar. She was supposed to find a solution, lock down the border, make everybody happy. And we never saw her do a single thing for the U.S. southern border. But she was supposed to be the top person on it. Well, that was President Biden's mistake. I want to play you this clip. And in this clip, this is Jared Bernstein. He is being asked why we are borrowing money when we can just print our own. Just listen to this, because again, I've watched this several times thinking this was a joke, but this is actually from a documentary. I believe it's called Finding the Money. But listen to this.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Since they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
Okay. Let's unravel that for a second, because he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. This is the chief economist, okay? The chief economist. He's supposed to be the economic advisor, and he has no clue why the United States prints money, why we borrow our own money when we could just print more, okay? So I'll explain that in just a second. But here's the big thing. We have people like this throughout our entire government. Think about it. When we go and somebody puts, let's say President Biden, he picks people that he wants as in the cabinet. Okay, he just picks them. And then Congress is supposed to go and approve them. You know what's happened lately? Congress does not approve his cabinet members. You know why? Because they are questioning, why is President Biden putting these people in charge? Jared Bernstein, for example. Previously with the Trump administration, Larry Kudlow could have came out and he could have told us exactly why the United States is borrowing our own currency and not just printing more. Okay? So let me just explain that really quick. Here's the thing. The U.S. can print its own money. Okay? We can print our own money. We can print as much money as we want to. The printing is done through the U.S. Treasury. Here's the thing. The Federal Reserve is the one that has to put a lid on this. Because if we see the Treasury just come out and they're just running their money printer, what's going to happen is we are going to see runaway inflation. And so once we see runaway inflation because we're printing too much money, then the US dollar actually becomes devalued. Okay? So yes, like Jared Bernstein says, can we print our own money? Absolutely. We can do that. But why does the United States decide instead of printing more money, let's just borrow money? Well, here's the thing. If we borrow money, again, the money supply is only so big. Okay? If we continue to print more money, it's going to create additional inflation. Okay? It's going to devalue the dollar. Okay? But if we decide to borrow money, then the amount of money that's actually out there stays at that level. So we borrow that money and we give people a bond. The bond is a promise to pay. Okay? So a bond is simply a promise to pay the person or the country that's holding that bond that lent us that money, right? They lent us money in exchange for a bond. There's a promise to pay that in the next 2 years or 5 years or 10 years down the line, we're going to pay a certain amount. Okay? Pay back the amount plus interest. Okay. The reason the United States has to go and get these bonds, right? Get our currency from another country like China or whoever is simply because the U.S. needs money just like every other business or every other individual in order to pay and fund our operation, right? To fund the U.S. government. Because right now, every single year, we are operating at a deficit. That means we have more expenses than we do income. So in order to bridge that gap, we borrow from other countries. Okay? Again, I'm not an economist. And there's more to this, okay? There's a lot more to this. I use big fancy words and I could tell you all these things, but to try to just make it simple, if I didn't completely botch that one, but that is what Jared Bernstein should have said. He didn't. Here's the thing. The craziest part is that we have people like Jared Bernstein, people like him, in all parts of the government. And it's not just the Biden administration. The Trump administration probably had, one or two people like this. But this is the thing. We're putting our friends in places where they shouldn't be. Okay? Think about this for a second. We get lawmakers that come out and they're campaigning and they're telling us, well, they're going to get us this and they're going to get us more money and cut interest rates and no more taxes and everything's going to be perfect. And then they get into office and you see them in Washington and they never say a thing. They have no clue what they're talking about. Well, this is just a politician that we elected into that position. This is not a lawmaker. This is not somebody that's going to go out there and create policy. This is somebody that was built to campaign. That's it. And so the crazy part is, and the shocking news is, we see this every single day in different parts of our government. People have no clue what they're talking about, and yet they're in the top position, the peak position, to influence U.S. policy. So think about that for a second. Think about that in the upcoming election. When we vote to elect certain lawmakers, certain people, is that the right person in charge, or are they just saying the right things at the right time? Do they actually know what they're talking about? In this case with Jared Bernstein, he had no clue. So I will leave you with that, but just let me know, what are your thoughts? Do you think this is absolutely shocking that our top economic advisor has no clue what he's talking about? Let me know down in the comment section below. But again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.